3 races into the season, 3 different winners, 3 different manufacturer winners. NASCAR has started out 2020 on the right foot, I guess. Auto Club was yesterday, and it was a good race. It went from being threatened by rain to being able to get the whole race in without really any like impact in terms of rain. It rained a little bit before the race. It wasn't anything terrible though to where like it soaked the racetrack. This racetrack has a very old surface. In fact, I think they said it's the oldest asphalt surface in the Cup Series, which it is because it was built in 90. It was started being built in 95, opened in 97. They haven't repaved it since 1997 when it opened. They haven't repaved it at all. And all the other tracks that have older surfaces, you think of like Atlanta has an older surface, but that track got reconfigured, in the late 90s after Auto Club did. So Atlanta's probably like the second oldest or something. Um, but yeah, uh, so basically, what I'm saying is if it started downpour, the race would have been delayed for a few hours because the track is so old. The water seeps in and it causes those weepers, as you can see, like the seams on the straightaways. It gets stuck in there and starts weeping out the seams. That's why in like 2008, they had to delay it to the next day because it rained so much that it got caught in the weepers. But luckily, it only drizzled and sprinkled for a little bit, and they got the race going. So throughout practice and qualifying, it looked like it was going to be Penske versus Hendrick Motorsports here today. Joe Gibbs Racing showed no speed in qualifying and practice. Alex Bowman was the best car all weekend long. He won the practices, was the best 5-lap average, best 10-lap average. He was everywhere. Jimmy Johnson was pretty fast as well. And then Blaney was just as fast as the 88 was at points. Joey Logano was pretty fast. Brad Keselowski looked sporty at some points. So it looked like it was going to be down to Penske and Hendrick Motorsports, much like what we thought Vegas was going to be like. So at the green flag, Clint Boyer, Jimmy Johnson on the front row. Jimmy Johnson's family got to be up on the flag stand for the start of the race, which was very, very cool. His last time racing at his home track. Throughout the race, there's not really much to talk about in terms of cautions and stuff like that. There were 3 yellows, 2 for stage, and 1 for Boyer below the tire. So there wasn't really much to talk about in terms of that. In terms of racing, it was pretty darn good. Auto Club, I was saying this yesterday after the race. Auto Club just kind of, I don't understand why when Auto Club comes around the schedule, people go, I'm not watching it because it's Auto Club. I don't really care for that racetrack. It's not fun. And I'm thinking back, and in the 2010s, there's been like 3 bad Auto Club races, right? I mean, you look at 2010, I think those runs were decently good. Then go look at 2011, it was a good race. 2012 was maybe the worst Auto Club race of the 2010s. It was horrible and then it got rain shortened, okay? 2013 was awesome, probably the best race of 2013. 2014 was awesome. 2015 was good. 2016 was great. 2017 was good. 2018, 2019 were lacking, but then this one was also good. I don't understand why people say Auto Club has been bad in the past. It's a racetrack where it's kind of like Homestead. It's a driver's racetrack. The tires wear out very, very fast there. You can run multiple grooves. You get sideways at points. It is a fun-ass racetrack. So I don't really understand when people go and say, oh, it's just another 2-mile racetrack. In my opinion, it trumps Michigan by a mile, by 2 miles. It trumps Michigan by 2 miles. It's a lot better than what we see at Michigan. So I feel like Auto Club is maybe one of the most underrated tracks on the schedule. It's produced good racing over the past few years on a consistent basis as well. Um, so stage one ended with Alex Bowman winning it. Stage two went to Ryan Blaney. And then the final stage was kind of Blaney and Bowman in a toss-up. Alex Bowman got out front at the end and won the race by, I think, almost 9 seconds over Kyle Busch, who got up to second. So that was also a very interesting part of the race that I'll describe in a little bit. So Bowman pretty much dominated that race. He led, I think, about half the race. He and Blaney definitely had the 2 best cars here today. Blaney, I think, got 19th, though, due to some late tire issues. Jimmy Johnson finished 7th in his last race at his home track, and has an amazing stat. He's raced 26 times, I think, in Auto Club. I think he's raced 26 times. He has completed every single lap in his career at Auto Club. every single lap. Just think about that, right? He has raced there since 2002. And in 2002 and all that stuff, at points they had two 500-mile races a season, okay? You look at '02 and '03, right? You look at like '04, '05, '06, '07, '08, '09, and 2010. Those seasons were all 500-mile races. On top of that, in a lot of those seasons, they had two Auto Club races in a season. They had like the second race of the season, and then they had one either in the playoffs or just before the playoffs. So two 500-mile races in a season, and then all these other races. So many miles were completed by Jimmy Johnson Auto Club, and somehow, some way, every single race he finished on the lead lap. Even if he had something go wrong, he still was on the lead lap. He's so good at this racetrack. And I mean, like, it's crazy. Like, that's something that, like, 26 races. Like, you don't expect that. That's so many laps that you've completed. And that's honestly quite impressive. It's kind of like Jeff Gordon, how I think he only didn't finish like 5 laps at Martinsville in his career or something. That's also insane. So that's insane for Jimmy. And he also got a very, very deserved 7th place finish. He ran up inside the top 5 pretty much all day long. His car just wasn't really great on the long haul, and it showed on that last run. He really, really faded and lost a few spots within the final 10 laps. JGR, want to talk about them a little bit. They sucked in qualifying, as I mentioned. The race came around, they all looked pretty bad except for Truex. Truex definitely looked like the best car once again from that stable. And once again, pit stops ruined the 19. Last race at Vegas, he had one of the best cars up there with Chase as one of the best cars, and then his pit crew messed up. And then here today, Truex running up inside the top 5, top 10 after starting last because he didn't get to perform a qualifying lap. Started last, got up inside the top 10, top 5, racing up there. His pit crew, remember, I think it was his rear tire changer, had an arm cramp. As he's finishing up the pit stop, his arm is cramping up holding the gun, so he can't really that must hurt a ton. So he couldn't really do anything, and it lost him so much time. Truex fell outside the top 15, battled back up inside the top 10, was battling with teammate Denny Hamlin, got onto Hamlin's rear fender, and the 11 got tight up into the 19, into the wall. The 19 went, and then he fell back outside the top 15, or I think he finished outside the top 15, may have fallen outside the top, he fell outside the top 10 though. Eric Jones was quiet all day long, and he got a top 10. I mean, he really showed nothing. He was kind of just there all race, kind of forgot about him. And then Denny Hamlin maybe had the most controversial day of the JGR cars. So early on, I think it was stage 1, like lap 35 or something. Kyle Larson is in front of Denny. Denny has a run down the front stretch and decides he's going to push Larson down into turn 1, but he pushes him too hard, gets Larson turned into the outside wall. So Larson has all this damage. Larson falls 2 laps down. He does get back on the lead lap and finishes, I think, like 22nd or something, but it was still a lot worse than what it could have been. So Denny got a little bit of hate for that. He kind of battled up inside the top. He was kind of like 8th to 15th all race long. Once again, he had that run-in with his teammate Truex, but then that last run, he really came alive and got up. I think he finished 6th. He passed Jimmy off the final corner, so he had a good day. And then Kyle Busch had the best day of them all. He was probably the leading JGR car for most, if not all, the day, besides when Truex was up there. Kyle battled up, got fortunate with Blaney having some issues late in the going, and Kyle Busch got a runner-up finish out of a day where it looked like he was going to be lucky to get a top 10 or top 7 or something. So JGR, even though they didn't look great all weekend long, and they definitely are lacking some speed, they still were pretty impressive getting up there and getting 3 of their cars inside the top 10. In fact, all 4 could have gotten inside the top 10 if things went differently. So props to them, because it looked like they were going to be terrible this weekend, and they were going to be lucky to get a car or 2 inside the top 10. Lo and behold, they got 1 inside the top 2, and they got 3 inside the top 10. Team Penske also was probably the strongest the strongest team of the race. Joey Logano ran really well early on, but once he got dropped back in traffic, he couldn't come back forward. Ryan Blaney, as I mentioned, was just as strong as Bowman at parts of the race, so he was definitely one of the best cars of the race. And Brad Keselowski didn't really show much during the race. I mean, he kind of hovered from like 5th to 13th all race long. He was kind of in that portion. Sometimes he'd be inside the top 10. Sometimes he would poke his way inside the top 5. Sometimes he'd be just outside the top 10. But some pit strategy by his crew chief, keeping him out there on the racetrack longer, then coming into pit road under the final stop a little bit later, getting the tires later, was allowing him to fly up through the field in that last run. He got from like 13th or 14th or 15th or something up into 5th in that last run because of those new tires. So, that's a gamble that's worth taking. Um, and then obviously Hendrick Motorsports, the team that won the race. Bowman, best car all race long. We saw it. He pulled away whenever he got out front. Jimmy Johnson ran inside the top five for much of the race. I think he got a pair of thirds for the stage finishes. He ran inside the top five most of the race, but only that last run really was his kryptonite. He fell back and finished seventh. Chase Elliott started the worst of them, or maybe not the worst, but he kind of started a little bit back there. Climbed his way inside the top 10, stayed inside the top 10 once he got up there, and finished, I think, fourth or fifth. I think he got fourth, just at Brad. So that was another respectable finish for Chase. And then William Byron was a little bit of a disappointment this weekend, not going to lie. I thought he would be, kind of running up there inside the top 15, top 10, but his car was just terrible. Even, like, there's a time where a caution came out perfectly. Byron had stayed out a lap or two later, came into pit road, then the yellow flag came out. So Willie B then merged out into the track as all the other cars slowed down. I think he merged like 6th or something. He went from like 19th to 6th. I thought, oh, this is his chance. Now he's track position. He'll be good. But he just fell back through the field, and, I think he got like 17th or 18th. It was just kind of like, bleh. William Byron just did not have a great run, and it was shocking to me because I thought that the pairing of Chad Knaus and William Byron would do a little bit better here this season, and especially at this race. But so far, Willie B's been struggling. He's down, I think, 20th in points. Just hasn't been a great season so far. I mean, he's had some fast race cars, but here yesterday, they just didn't have the speed at all. Um, so points look like this now. There are 3 drivers that are locked into the playoffs on wins. That's Denny, Joey, and Alex. All have wins this season in the first 3 races, which means all 3 manufacturers have wins, which is the first time since 2016 that happened. In 2016, Hamlin won the 500, Jimmy won in Atlanta, and Brad went and won Vegas. So that's how, last time that happened was 2016. In terms of real points, Jimmy Johnson is currently 5th in real points, which is the first time since 2016, race 13, in which he was top 5 in real points. 2016, race 13. That was the 2016 Coca-Cola 600 was the last time Jimmy Johnson was top 5 in points. That's so long ago. It is 2020, race 3. It's almost been 4 years since Jimmy was top 5 in real points, and so far this year, he has had some very, very fast race cars. Obviously in the 500, got a little unfortunate with the big one and all that. At Vegas, he ran inside the top 10 all day and had an amazing last restart to get inside the top 5. I think he finished like 5th or something. And then here today at All Club, he was one of the best cars. If it came down to a late restart, he could have been one of the best because he had a really good short run car. His long run car was lacking, though. So Jimmy Johnson, man, his last season, looking like right now he's going to be in the chase as long as everything goes all right. Hopefully it kind of stays like this. Hendrick and Chevy have shown some really good speed to start the season. Larson was pretty fast until the contact with Denny. He finished top 10 in both the first 2 races. He was set to do that here today. Kurt Busch was really fast today. He ran up inside the top 5 at the end. I think he got he got third, which was very impressive. So, Chevy with their new body style, showing some pace. So we'll see if they can keep it throughout the season. And Ford also looking pretty strong right now, and Toyota's kind of lacking a little bit. But they could try and get back. Probably one of the best teams to be able to do that. One last thing I want to talk about is the fact of why this race was good, and why Las Vegas was good. You look at the last 2 races. I'm going to call it the 2 real races of the season because at Daytona, nothing really matters in terms of what I'm about to talk about. But you look at the tire wear of the last 2 races. Goodyear brought a softer tire, which allows it to wear more, which allows, the drivers have to try and save their tires for a long haul, and it allows more slipping and sliding and more passing. We saw at Vegas and we saw here today, or yesterday at All Club, the tire wear came into play, which makes good racing. The more the tires, well, not the more the tires wear, but the more tire wear comes into play, the better the racing is. If you just have tires that can stay on there for 150 laps, it's not going to be, you know, exciting. When you have tires that you have to like take care of and nurse around, that's good stuff. That kind of separates the good drivers from the bad drivers, and I like seeing stuff like that where it takes talent to drive the race car, and you have to do stuff like that and manage the tires and stuff like that. So I think that's why the first two real races of the season, um, have been so good because of the tire wear. Last year we didn't really see much tire wear from Goodyear. They were afraid to bring a softer tire because of the fact that there's higher downforce. Basically, the reasoning for this, people may blame Goodyear, but it is very hard. The more downforce you have, obviously, the higher the center of the corner speed is going to be because you have to lift out the gas as much because you have so much more grip. Um, so then Goodyear goes and is like, okay, we want to bring as soft a tire as possible, but we don't want to bring too soft a tire to where blown tires are going to be something bad or cording or whatever. Um, so then Goodyear has to do testing, and with so much downforce, the load on the tires is so much, and that's an issue because then you're going to start blowing tires and stuff. So when NASCAR brings more downforce, it kind of puts Goodyear in a box where they're like, we can't make too soft of tires, and we don't want to have issues, so let's go with a harder tire to make sure it's all right. And that kind of ruins everything. So they've gotten a little bit better this year with that. At All Club, though, we did see some issues with tires. Alex Bowman, his last pit stop, the tire came off and he was cording a tire. In the last run, apparently something like that may have been happening again. Ryan Blaney was cording a tire in the final run, had to come down pit road, got 19th. Jimmy Johnson in the last run felt like he was cording a tire. So we had some tire issues yesterday, which is kind of concerning, but I mean, maybe it was the driver's setups. I mean, they were the fastest race cars. Three of the fastest race cars out there had cording issues. So it's possible that maybe it was setup related, or maybe Goodyear stepped the boundary a little bit too far. Um, Although it didn't really cause many issues. No one really blew a tire because of that. The only reason someone blew a tire was Clint Boyer when the valve stem, and obviously Blaney at the end of the race with whatever issue he had. So that sucks for Blaney especially. He has had three races where he could have won the race, and he has come out of there with really nothing. He's still a points leader somehow. He scored the most points this season, mostly because of stage points. He's been so strong. Todd Gordon has really brought that 12 team to a new level. So I think Blaney's going to get himself a few wins here this season. He's been very, very strong. And one final thing I want to talk about, NASCAR Scanner. I have it this season. As I've said before, I used RaceView, and then they got rid of RaceView, so now I'm on Scanner. And what I usually used RaceView and Scanner for was to listen to the officials, because obviously I want to listen to that, see what they're talking about, see if maybe someone's going to the garage or whatever. Pit road penalties after pit stops are always fun to hear. But yesterday I decided to do something a little different. I had two tabs open. I had one with the officials radio, and I had one with AllScan. What AllScan does is it basically scans through all of the team's radios, not all at once. It'll put, it's like, all right, if someone's talking now, it'll happen. If someone's talking now, it'll go to them. So like it'll be like, okay, so Truex Aspire's talking now. He stops talking, then it goes to like Brad's crew chief or something. Let me tell you, it's very, very funny to listen to. It gets a little confusing at times because I'm like, oh my god, there's too many people talking. But let me tell you, you get a lot of like you get a wealth of information out of this. It was so funny, and also it seemed like every time someone was complaining, it cut to them. Like I heard there was a point in the race where everyone got mad, but Truex was very pissy yesterday. I don't know what happened to him, but like he needed to just chill a little bit because he was mad, like furious at people. There was a point in the race, right? Where like everyone got mad. So Denny and Truex raced, and as I mentioned, Truex rode on Denny's right rear quarter, and it got Denny tight and put Truex into the wall. Denny complained and said, "Tell him when you ride on my right rear, it makes me effing tight." And so that was funny. And then like a little bit later, Almirola's spotter was mad at a lap car. Almirola was racing with Denny Hamlin for a position inside the top 10. I think a lap car held Almirola up, and Almirola Spires said something about like that asshole, and then that asshole let Denny around, instead of Eric, and they said, "Oh." And the Bud lets the 11 go around. What a guy! And then Truex, it cuts to Truex, who's back in like 13th, nowhere near this battle. And Truex says, "I don't give a fuck." And like I'm like, oh my god, people are angry. Like Truex was mad all race long. He got mad at his teammates racing him really hard. He got really mad at Joey Logano for blocking him and almost putting him into the wall. And he was getting mad at his crew and his everyone. So I mean, he was getting really, really furious. But it was very funny. So I would recommend if you have Scanner, that's the way to do it. All scan, unless you have a favorite driver you want to listen to. Then obviously do that because that's what you do. You would listen to your favorite driver on Scanner. But since I don't really have a driver I follow terribly close, I'm just gonna do that. And I'm starting to learn now other people's voices. So like I'm trying to learn like crew chiefs and spotters' voices. I know some of them obviously like Clayton Hughes is very easy to decipher. Kyle Busch's spotter is very easy to decipher. Chase Elliott's spotter, Jimmy's spotter. I kind of know a lot of these guys' spotters because I've listened to them in terms of like radioactive and stuff like that. There are some people that are like new and stuff that like I'm like I don't know like what does Jeremy Bullen sound like, I don't know, because I heard him talking a few times because he said like okay Brad, I'm like okay that's Jeremy Bullen's. Oh, okay that's Brad Spotter. I don't really hear him much because he's new now because the other guy left. So it's just interesting to hear for sure. So I think I'm going to be doing that the rest of the season. So maybe I'll film it at points and just try to cut out some of the best moments because it's really funny. But that's all. A little bit of a long race review, but it was worth it because this race was pretty good. Next week is Phoenix, and the short spoilers are back. Low downforce is back. I'm going to be very excited about that. That's going to be something I'm going to be looking forward to. On Friday, I'm going to be watching practice, and as soon as practice comes, I'm going to be like, look at those small spoilers. They're back. It's going to be so exciting. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.